Real.
Yeah, did you want to start with Dante's?
Is he here? Is he online?
That's Dr. Kraken with them. What time did you have him?
I just told him it would be available at 6:30. Let me see. I'm sure he didn't email me.
Probably has to be studious.
Yeah.
No, he's very sick and not able to join a meeting tonight. Sorry for
Very sick. Oh, sorry to hear that.
It's going around.
Not anymore, please.
No, it's a rebound effect.
I have a bunch of masks out of my car if you want.
Yeah. Be a bad idea.
Everybody's doing that.
All right, well, since sounds like you're gonna join us tonight, I guess let's start with Dr. Murphy. We're gonna swing it back to swing it right back to Dr. Shea. There we go. So you're on.
Did you, guest in the audience, did you want an agenda?
Don't forget the program.
Will be attached.
You're gonna be at Speeds tomorrow.
No, I am in Lower Alces Township this year. Yes, if I was willing to drive and I stupidly said yes.
And remember, you promised to be at the Mosaic concert too. Remember?
Yep.
Okay.
Shorts on his calendar.
Light sound. All right. Number one on the agenda under our budget and finance, we do start to roll out some of the budget stuff for you now, and then we'll continue piecing it out as we go through. The number one is to ratify the receipt of the 22-23 IDA funding agreement with the BCIU. That's passed through them. Federal money coming in the amount of $240,307. And that is an agreement that is for 22-23 that is budgeted in the 22-23 budget.
What is it exactly?
It's a special ed funding, and then it's like a special ed, what's called pass-through funding. And then it comes through the federal government, to the state government, to the intermediate unit. And then we apply to the intermediate unit when we have expenses that for special education. We use it primarily for salary and benefits for our special education teachers. It's like a grant in a way. But it's passed through many agencies before it gets here, and then we send them the bill, and then they give us the money, and then that's what we use it for. Us just allocate salaries and benefits. Nothing new. We use it for reoccurring expenses. It's something we get every year. The amounts tend to change a little bit, but not a lot. It must be used for special ed.
Does it depend on the amount of kids involved or?
It's a couple things. It depends on how much money is allocated at the federal level. And then as it generally passes through the state level and then passed down through the IU, everybody kind of takes their top off, a certain percentage of administrative fees. But it has to do with Act 16, which is how many high need special ed, middle need, and low need special education students you have based on that whole weighted formula. But it also comes down to how much money they put in that general pot of money for the states coming off the federal programming, because IDA is federal, not state. So all the special education regs are on a national level. Good. Number two is the 22-23 budget timeline. We're recommending approval on Wednesday for that. The meetings are on the district calendar for a budget. We start breaking those out in February. We will provide updates as we go, also as a base, your regular curriculum meetings, and then the big discussions are the separate meetings. At the same time that we have timeline we have followed before, the preliminary proposed for the first meeting in May, and then the final budget approval is the first meeting in June, and then have all your decisions. The rest of the stuff on it is the things that are driven by PDE, what's due when, all the reports that Ming has to submit. Homestead, farmstead, the Sterling Acts, all those pieces, a lot of that has to do with what we do internally, not really with the board, but the dates are there for you. So they're going to be really important this year because they do have a lot of staffing implications, which will start to, put you in front of you tonight to start to think about what you want to do moving forward. And then some of the nuances aren't really known until February after hopefully tomorrow who the new governor is and what that budget's going to look like is February. We won't have an idea on the trust until generally February, March, what they're looking at, a not to exceed number. A lot of changes at the trust to try to keep costs down, and a lot of the other revenue pieces. So the budget you'll see tonight is kind of the worst case. We've not really drilled it down totally yet, but it's not in bad shape for the first run. We are kind of a month early in building. And then it's really going to be, we'll start fine tuning at every meeting now coming out every month for you. So we'll see in this year's budget as well as next year's budget.
Any questions on the timeline? Basically the same timeline we've had before. Okay, Doc,
The only change to the timeline is I took out the January meeting
I saw it.
only because we never really had anything to talk about because we didn't have the governor's budget. So I figured we could do whatever we need to do. We'll just do in the regular committee meetings.
Okay.
Next budget meeting is the resolution not to raise taxes by the index because there's no way you're going to go over a mill on taxes. And then the audit, the local audit. The next one is the bond refinancing schedule and the bond expenditure plan. As you know, we've talked about that you have a bond that you must refinance in the spring. It will be callable or we have to refinance it in May. We are proposing $3 million and new money. I have to find my sheet. I think I gave it to somebody. It's in one of my folders, but thank you. Which is and then what you normally will do is do what's called a ROC, which is option 3. Because what will happen is you have even though it looks bad when you get down to like 33 and 30, year 33 and 34, but at that point you have to refinance them anyway, and then you extend your debt out. It has the lowest local effort in it. The problem is that the market is very low right now, or very high. The interest rates keep going up. We are not allowed to lock it in right now, but the one thing that, thanks, Ming. The one thing that we have talked with them about is doing something which I'm not sure if this district has done or not, but it's basically a resolution that you can pass now that will allow us to take, as we've talked, all of these expenses that were unknown in the repairs of the elementary and some in the middle school that we found through this upgrading and the controls and the HVAC issues that we thought was going to be an easy, fix, has not been, and it's really kind of killing the general fund that you'll see shortly. Be able to take those and allocate them against this new money, which will actually save you money in the long run because the interest rates are much lower without hurting your capital reserve. So right now what we do is allocate them against the reserves. And then when the new money comes, the resolution will allow you then to move that money against the bond, which will then save money and keep your reserves for emergencies very healthy, which keeps your bond rating very high, keeps all of your audits, everything else really you're in very good standing. So that's what we're kind of proposing is the $3 million. And what I did in rough estimates, and this always can change for you, is on the second page of the packet is the current bond that you have is the 22 bond, which we did last spring because that one was callable. Whereas the middle school chillers we were able to take 200,000 out of that 486 or 446 is what the chillers cost. So we were taking 2 from the bond and then 246 from the capital reserve fund. This resolution will allow you to take the balance of that out of the second bond. So that money will just kind of like the down payment is made out of reserves. And then we'll pay it actually out of when the new money hits in June, it'll come out of the bond proceeds and not out of your reserves. So all of that you'll see in this, which is right now seated at about $688,000 between and non-budgeted kind of expenses on the elementary and middle school repairs between all of the pumps, the motors, the univents, all of the stuff that I've been talking about that we have found in the elementary and that we had to fix. And I've been, Mr. Pollack, as being an engineer, I've been sending some of the stuff to him, just kind of like, am I seeing this as it is? And he's confirming that some of the stuff has to be done and is a safety issue. So we've been moving pretty fast on it. It's all in the general fund right now. But the resolution will allow us to take that money out of the general fund and actually earmark it against the bond proceeds, which will save you in the general fund itself, which is going to keep that pretty healthy. We're still running into issues and repairs in that elementary. So that's where that is. The same thing with the maintenance building. for the elementary to get the truck and all those things taken care of. And then we had a kind of a pseudo Title IX issue with a high school shed for the softball field because baseball has storage, softball did not. Then we needed the new cider stand for the seniors. So that was all purchased and we got a very large one because we needed for storage with a 4-foot door and it's concession stand eligible. It's going to be on wheels, working with Levan. It's going to be a lot easier to move. So it's also out of the ground, so it doesn't get messed up. But that could actually be put against this as well. And that puts it back in the general fund. We'll start this next piece is something that goes back 10 years for me, maybe longer, but the movement, and you're probably going to start to hear about it after the first of the year from some community groups who are upset because we do not have a lot of extra gym space. So they are pushing again to try to get an expansion of the high school gym out the back to expand the auxiliary gym. So that there is, in past, it's been called a wrestling room, but for me, it's an all-purpose room for that we can use for baseball, softball, wrestling, cheerleading. That is not just driven off the auxiliary gym. Now, whether you choose to do that or not, you could take that $275 and use it for something else because you have 3 years in which to spend this money. Because when I've been talking to some of the community groups, especially the youth wrestlers, they might have to put up some money and help to fundraise some of this because there's not a grant out there for it like there was with the press box. I know that's something that's been talked about with some of the youth league groups is the fact that when they come inside, we are very limited on gym space and keeping the wrestling mats down and keeping them taped down, and they kind of want their own space, but we don't have a space to give them. And the next one is that we're looking at elementary and high school, even with the work we're doing because of the layout of the building and the fact that it's a 2-pipe system and not a 4-pipe system. There's a way to actually get dehumidifiers that fit into ceiling tiles. Then you can vent them then outside the building. So the back social studies hallway, which has always been humid in the summer. We do have sometimes with the mildew and the smell and things. The same thing with elementary has historically had some issues with air quality and that kind of mildew smell in the primary wing and then in the 3rd and 4th grade. That these actually fit in the corner in the ceiling and then are vented out so that they would run in order to prevent that issue. It's kind of a new technology and we're kind of working with 2 manufacturers and installations now that will really help prevent any kind of moisture penetration issues moving forward. Because we've had mold and mildew issues at least 3 times in the last 11 years that I've been here. And that would help fix that going forward so that you wouldn't have it on chairs. You wouldn't have to worry about your ceiling tiles. You wouldn't have to worry about some of those other pieces. Because what you don't want to do is continue to have those air quality issues in the summertime. So even running the air conditioning sometimes when it's 90 degrees out and it's so humid, which is the way the summers seem to be going these days, the building cannot keep up. And this is a whole lot cheaper than trying to install a whole new system. And because you really would have to do a full-blown renovation to both the elementary and the high school versus, which is, you're looking $25-30 million on a building alone versus 150 in dehumidifiers. And this gets them out of the hallways, gets them out of portable units, and actually puts something that you can run and they're quiet. So they could be running while the classroom's in session and just cleans up your air. So that's something that we're looking at now and pricing out. The last thing from this issue is the township water project. Not sure if you've heard much about this, but the Township Water Authority is now putting in a new water line or changing a water line, I guess is the way I understand it. And it goes back to, I guess, when they built the field in 2007, there was a water line that they had to cap that went from Uplinks Drive.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had that in broad part of it that came into the high school near the band room, and they had to cap that off. And then so that they no longer had water that actually went up to the houses that are now behind the turf field. So what's happened over the years is they're having water flow issues and water pressure issues because they no longer have water that runs in a loop for the township. So now they are doing an easement on the edges of the property that come up Lakes Drive and then along the grass field and then to the end and then up to the houses. And that way they're not interfering with the turf or the grass field to tie that in so that they can restore the water pressure and then be able to cut off if they have a water leak, they can keep part of the township have water, part of the others. the other part of that comes into it is they now have to tie the high school back in again. Because if we have, you only have water on Jefferson Street into the high school. So if they lose the water line on Jefferson, the high school is down with no water until such time the township would fix it. So they're gonna reopen that line up and then rerun new pipe from that joint or that area to the high school and then tie the high school in. So if you lose the line on Jefferson, then you have water for the high school and can keep the high school open off the Lynx Drive one. If you lose the Lynx Drive side, you have the Jefferson side. And then our part of it is $50,000.
Do they have double access for the middle school and elementary school?
I'd have to check. I didn't look at the plans. I just was kind of blown away when they came in and they're doing the easement and doing the, you know, the paperwork for that, but
Are they forcing our hand on this?
yeah.
But in the beginning, they forced the hand on the other way when they capped. Because of what we did. Remember that was a discussion we had
All right. well,
15 years ago. So
I-
now we're forcing the hand back. Where we
You
said
know,
at the
there's not
beginning.
always a lot of time. Send me an email of this, you know, I know somebody who's pretty knowledgeable of this stuff.
Good.
I'll find it out.
Yeah, that was not their, and I didn't speak to it because I don't know, but, I said I would propose it and try and find $50,000, but that was not their interpretation. Their answer was that they were politically forced
They were politically forced.
to do it.
Okay.
So,
No.
and I'm like, I can't, like, I'm out.
Did they just throw that number so it would stick, or they just gave you an estimate of what they might need?
That was the number that they wanted.
That's what they want.
That's the number they wanted.
Politically forced. Sounds like tyranny.
That, and I was just like, if you're gonna do any easement,
Because of the situation we were in.
yeah. And the people involved.
Okay.
It's the
Dave,
people.
you have somebody just
I-
get us some
yes.
information on that?
Yeah. So I can
Drinking water.
send you the people, the engineer guy that I'm working with,
Somebody we
and
can-
then you can talk.
You know, I want to get it too, so.
Oh, I know, but
And then they're meeting with the supervisors and nobody's here to even talk about any of that. or-
There's nobody here from over that night.
if,
That's exactly,
Right.
that's, where were they?
yeah, but so you could take that 50 and use it for something else
Yeah, sure.
3 years from now. I just put it on here because I don't know where else you're gonna get $50,000, but I don't have the easement paperwork, but this is all supposed to start in June. And I wasn't worried about of 23, correct. So I wasn't worried about the easement piece because the way that we walk the property line, you're even where they're digging the little treads to put the new pipe in, it doesn't interfere with the play fields, it doesn't interfere with the turf, they're good. Because it doesn't, you know, the athletic fields are
Oh, that's
fine, the Lynx Drive is
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, that's more than, you know, that's fine. I mean, helping these people out, that's no problem with that, but forcing us to spend $50,000 to have a second water connection seems
So,
ludicrous.
yeah, well, and then you have to do all the easement paperwork and all of that, which I haven't seen yet, because that has to go to lawyers and.
Give us some information.
So-
The next step gonna be like double access for elementary school and the middle school too, each one $55,000 or no?
I don't,
They're doing Main Street first.
they're doing Main Street first, yeah.
Yeah. And then we're gonna move to the other ones. That was
It's just probably not gonna stop there.
You're doing it and.
And the other one has one year, which you could have it scheduled for summer of 25, but you can kick that down the road. But I'm basing that on the fact that you still don't know what the township is going to do with Main Street and the buses and those issues that we've talked about. Is the parking lot with milling and resurfacing. So that 1.5 you could use for something else because you have 3 years in which to do something with this money. If you borrow the 3 million. So it doesn't mean that this is the projects that you would have to do and lock in today. This is just the ones that we have used to justify the bond, because you're gonna have to do them, and I have them on the long range plan, which I will present sometime this spring, so you have it, all of you have it. It's just a matter of, like, at some point, you know, you're gonna have to do it, so whether it's in 25 or in 29. You might have
the whole school,
both campuses, yeah,
you wouldn't want to split them up.
no, it's actually cheaper to do them together, because the mobilization.
All the
Yeah. The hardest part we have, and we're still working to fix the one in both campuses, is when we did them, we couldn't keep people from driving on them. We had the, you know, the sawhorses out, we had cones out, people just moved and drove over all of them. So that's why we're working with them to have them come back and redo it at no cost. But every day that we had them set up to come, we couldn't get people to stop driving on them to leave them off. It was like, it felt like we just had like people sit there on lawn chairs,
What's it
so
say?
like,
What's the call?
Park a truck and that's, yeah.
yeah,
Put a line.
we had people actually mid cones. Yeah,
Low bed, park it there and that's it.
but they drove, like even the outdoor campus, they drove through the grass to get on the parking lot. When it was just late, which is why it looked so bad. So we just couldn't find, we have to find time early spring where there's nothing happening to try to, and then actually position people here to sit here and not let anybody on campus. It was crazy. I've never seen it with so much disrespect. But that's kind of what we're proposing for that, the 3 million with the wrap on the back end. And then the last page in your packet is the resolution from the bond people, which you've met. Is that it's all their legal language, is what you need to do and in order to pass it. And then basically what happens is you can go back 60 days from Wednesday, the 9th. And anything that we have previously paid for, like all the elementary and some of the middle school repairs, we can then reclassify in the books, on the books against the bond money, which takes them out of Fund 10, which is your general fund, against the bond, and then we'll be able to record them so that they don't hit the general fund, so that you don't run the risk of the general fund being overspent, because that is like the worst thing that can happen. And this one is very much an uncontrolled cost because you have to fix it. It is a health and safety issue. But I also don't want to blow the reserves because then you have no emergency funds if something else would happen and you never know what would happen. So that's kind of our proposal on that, on the bond refinancing, but that you have to do anyway, because the bond is callable.
Dr. Shane, a few questions. Auxiliary gym expansion. Does that include taxes and insurance that will come with that, or that's going to be counted in addition?
Taxes and insurance, we don't,
Well, if you get expansion, so you're going to be taxed on it.
we aren't taxed. We don't pay taxes.
Insurance?
Insurance is just with the building. So it really just goes on the assessment values, the valuation assessment. So it's really not that much more. Because everything else is in depreciation, so then you add that as an investment, it really becomes a wash in the end. Because the building is dropping in cost, then you add this, it kind of like evens out. And it's not that big, it's really proposed to be a basically a cinder block with a floor and, you know, overhead lights and heating unit and air conditioning unit. It's not very fancy at all. Running prices right now on what it would cost, but it's a very, if you would choose to do it, it would be a very simple structure. It would just give you more space out the back, and then it would also be able to be isolated that weather permitting, you would be able to enter and exit into that facility without having to enter the building, which would be another plus.
That's kind of nice.
So you're basically putting up a community building
In a
for the
way,
community.
yeah, in a way, you could think of
That's
that.
what you're doing.
But and I think when you were here, I think they were asking for a wrestling room too,
Yeah,
in a way.
and we had many, many hours of discussion on the topic about how we were going to handle our 10 or 12 kids. And with the mats and changing mats and borrowing mats and all that kind of stuff.
So basically that would, and now with competitive cheerleading and their mats and getting those mats down and up and youth league cheerleading and competitive cheerleading. I mean, they're doing gymnastics, almost like tumbling and throwing and all that. It's just huge. And then the regs, so it's just a matter, I mean, it's just a matter of getting prices for you, your decision, but I also wanted to give you the heads up that I'm anticipating some of your alumni wrestlers who are now youth league coaches and soon to be our coaches, may be coming in front of you asking for
They are
support.
welcome to come anytime.
So, but it could be that number, it could be twice that number. Construction prices right now are just through the roof.
And I would
Right.
invite them all to sit with us during the budget and discuss how it's possible to make ends meet, because let me tell you, it's going to be even harder. And it's going to get worse for us to make ends meet as the time comes, and you're going to see more of that tonight.
Yep.
But I hear you.
So it's and that bond list can always be changed because things change, you don't know what's gonna happen 3 years from
So
now.
it's important that we move on this bond refinancing so we can get the things that we've already spent taken care of.
Yes.
Okay.
And out of the general
And
fund.
now the general fund.
And we're voting on this Wednesday.
Yes, I'd like to do the resolution.
Just on the resolution,
Resolution.
does a resolution obligate us to anything at that point, or just?
Resolution will allow, the only thing it's obligating you to is allowing us to reclassify the expenses
Right.
against the bond money.
Right.
That's the thing that it will do. And then the bond costs are included in the refinancing, like the last one. It was like in a cash outlay. We kind of just like all bumped it all together. So it's not another, piece. And then we're using those numbers in the budget presentation itself. And then hopefully, stars will align and the economy will start to recover after tomorrow.
Is the $3 million how did we come to that $3 million?
I tried to look at what your major expenses are over the next 3 to 5 years and then what in the world of capital plans.
Okay.
Which is roof units, parking lots, if something were to happen, with the parking lots and they do disintegrate faster than what we're anticipating. Some of those other, those kind of pieces. So that some of the stuff on there is like a nice to have, not a must have. But it does give you a little flexibility if you lose another roof unit or something else goes. But all of your major HVAC equipment it will be in good shape by the time we get to March.
Well, I understand that. I was just curious, does the $3 million need to be further discussed before we? I would this resolution to obligate us to the $3 million or just again,
It's the 3 million, it caps it at 3 million. I wouldn't go any higher than 3 million on a 3-year.
it's something that this side that needs more discussion, the $3 million limit. Do you want more? Do you want less? I get lost in the timelines here, so I'm fine with the amount myself, and I supported it, but I wasn't sure if everybody understands it. Once you start moving forward with this, we're pretty much moving forward with a $3 million refinancing.
And that's your recommendation through what Ming has looked at, 3 million is your recommendation?
Yeah, 3 million is the new money.
Right.
Right.
New money, yeah.
But I guess the question is, do we need that much?
Do we need that much, or is there a 2.5, or is 3 million the number you recommend us to do? I mean, that's the question
Right now it's pretty much like a 3 million.
Yeah.
we need.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So 2 million is not gonna do it.
No.
No, if we could go back a year, we should have done it then, but we were too conservative thinking and that was we should have borrowed like 4 or 5 last year and we didn't. Because we were concerned that you would have money to spend in 3 years and then you would get to the end having to make up projects. And then we hit some issues that I didn't even see coming.
2,725,000 would be good.
So it's why we did the 3 million, because it does give you some flexibility. Because you have the elementary, you have some roof units that are coming off their 20-year warranty in the middle school. Hopefully you can, now that they're all being PM'd correctly and being taken care of, you should be able to buy some more time there. The same ones here. So it does give you a little bit of room to do some other things, but it's hard to tell when you have a 1962 building and a 1992 building, what you're going to hit in 2 years from now.
Okay, I got you.
And what's the interest?
It depends on when they sell the bonds.
Yeah.
Average?
I don't know if we have an idea yet, because the way things are going, the way the Fed's changing rates.
Could be 3 today and
It depends how it goes tomorrow, right?
Unfortunately, yeah.
What did they say they were going? I mean, the bond market there are a lot of people wanting to buy bonds. Like that's one thing that is in the favor right now, is that's an area that there's a lot of competition for that. So they think they can get them lower than if you were trying to buy other things or sell other things. But you can talk to Stiefel tomorrow and see what they have to say, or tomorrow can.
Okay.
Just to say, like, if he sold them today, what would they be?
Yeah, let us know that.
Yeah.
Send something out to us, let us know that, so we know. Okay.
And that way they have an idea,
Yeah.
that, because it all could change, but they had said they
Fred has
would,
an idea ballpark number, what he's.
yeah, whatever the forecast is.
Yeah.
as of today.
Okay,
Okay, next is your first look at 22-23 and 23-24, or 22-23 and 23-24, which is your big sheet.
and Doctor, you're not gonna go over the line tonight, are you? Just gonna
No.
point out some things?
Yep.
Okay, good.
The first thing I'm gonna point out is your real estate taxes, for those of you that were at the township meeting, and 2 of the tax collectors were there. And Rosella was not able to make it due to a family situation, but If you notice, how much more the tax collectors are bringing in versus what you budgeted, they are doing a phenomenal job in collecting like 97-98% of what's out there.
Good.
So that's really a credit to them and being on the front line. Your interims are up, which is good. A lot of the other stuff, the EIT is looking pretty healthy right now in projections. Hopefully that stays where it's at. And then coming down, the other stuff, basic ed subsidy, we got a little bit extra in the second round of the governor's budget, a little bit in special ed. So far, we've been able to pull 396, 772 in grants between supplemental grants, state grants, and some other stuff that I've written. We'll keep working on that to offset. And then the other one, transportation, you're going to see less in revenue. That will also drop for 23-24. We just didn't have time to run that one yet because we budgeted for 15 buses and we're only able to run 13 because we don't have drivers. So though you save it on the transportation side and the expenditures, you're also going to lose it on the revenue side. So that will have effect because they're always a year behind and how they fund that. So the PSER stuff is in there. It's at the new rates, which is like 35.62, I think it was, or 35.32 for next year. So we know what that is. Most of the other grants are coming in. From what we're hearing, everybody's playing the lottery and the slots. So that's next year's 23-24. That should be up closer to that 785 number. I think everybody's just trying to become billionaires. So let's just hope that happens tonight. And then the titles are coming in, as you'll see in a little bit, as far as what's happening to the free and reduced lunch population in the district. A lot of that's driven by the homeless and the foster as well. Where you're actually getting more medical assistance. Ming is doing a great job with working with student services, going after all the money again. Because if you remember back 4 or 5 years, that number used to be in the hundreds. You should get over $100,000 and $125,000, and it's been low. So she's been working with them to go after every dollar we can. I do not have in the projected. I do not put the fund balance in the 677 you budgeted. But we're going to try not to spend it if all the stars align. Salary wise, that with all the numbers are in for next year's contract, well, as we know today with column movement for 23-24, that's where the 10,440 comes from for teachers. The admin line item that has half of my salary out. It has also half of Barry's salary out. Barry will be retiring December 31st as well. And then support staff is shifting from what's left in the district down to SOS, which you'll see. So that number, I believe, for 23-24 is going to come down again. You'll see shifting in the co-curricular to athletics. So what may have dropped in one line, you'll see go up in the next one. 23-24 is actually all new contract language. So you will see some increases there because like the $19 an hour goes to 20, some of those things that you approved in the teacher's contract. Right now, we have medical insurance increase at a base of a 3% increase. We're hearing anything from a 1 to a 4.5, but who knows what that's going to end up being. Due to the HR, as we talked back in July or August, and being able to get letters out to substitutes, letters out to our coaches, all of those other higher pieces that basically are what we call reasonable assurance letters, our unemployment is going to drop again too. So we're going from having to budget $25,000 that we shouldn't be spending any more than $3,000 to $4,000 total in unemployment, and some of that's just because we did not renew their contracts for reasons. We do owe them, but other than that, that should really start to cut that down. Due to Ming's work in workman's comp and transitional return to work and safety committees and all that stuff, those numbers, if you remember back, at one point we were at $346,000 for our premiums for workman's compensation, and we're down to 70. So that's considerable savings there. Buildings and grounds, you'll see we are up $1 million. That's almost all elementary and middle school at this point. And that's what will go against the bond. Next year is just because fuel, oil, gas, and electric are going through the roof. When I looked at the projections as working with the IU on the bids for our buying electric through Provident and the companies that we use, we're bidding with the IU and the consortium. Those rates and the electric rates, as everybody knows, is going to hit us hard. The nice thing is that according to Optimum and Garinger, who's doing all your work at the elementary and the middle school, Elementary alone, they're telling me, and we're tracking it for you, so you'll be able to ask whoever's sitting in this chair next year, but from October of 23 to October, 22 to October of 23, they are estimating that if you maintain your equipment, you will save 40% in heating oil and electric by the work that you're doing now. And that's in 1 year. And that's just the elementary. They're expecting probably 30% in the middle school. So it's kind of like pay it up front and then get it back over time. So that's one of the things you want to watch. And we are tracking that for you. So that I have it all set up on. So if you want to see those numbers, you just, ask for them. Some of the other stuff coming in is student services. You'll see next month that they were way over budget last year, so we're kind of reining them in. Charter schools is coming down, which is great. BCTC is in there. We're expecting our piece to go up again because we're sending more students, which I'll show you shortly. That's the rest of student services. Business office is what it is. Office of the superintendent is up because you'll have two people in the same position. Curriculum instruction will be pretty much this, it's about the same because that account carries a lot of the foundation grants. And also math is on cycle for the elementary. That's a big one. So Mr. Williams and I are working on that with the teachers for what math curriculum we're going with there. Board services is kind of what it is. We are seeing a decrease in legal this year, of course, and it should be a little higher, but not a lot for next year, only because I do a lot of the legal work and then I won't be here to do it. Athletics is up because of the St. Luke's contract. We're negotiating that now. Any athletic training contract across the county is almost going to double because they are very difficult to find. And we have two that everybody's recruiting and 1.5, I should say, and they are outstanding. So Tim is working on negotiating that now. SOS employees is up. That number is like everybody here every day, which we'll pull that down because we know that that's not realistic. But that's kind of fully staffed, paras and custodians. And then the Nextel transfer, the debt service, of course, and then the buildings are on a flat budget. So right now in 22-23, which isn't bad with no fund balance usage, even though you budgeted, you're only 532 in the hole, which is not bad sitting in November. And then next year coming out of the gates without really zeroing down, to the penny like we will continue to do as we move forward, because we've already started clamping on the budget. Is 1.4 million, which I know that we will continue to pull that down as we continue to go with some other pieces. So that's kind of your worst case scenario coming out of 2024. Here's that has been closer to 1.8 to 1.9. So I was kind of happy when I finished that this morning. At that number.
Dr. Shane, number 25. 23, 24, only 18,000. It's a huge difference.
For
reason.
tuition
Subsidy.
Yeah, tuition subsidy for core placed.
Yeah.
That's the number of foster children that you have in the district. We get money for those. We have migrant students now in the district. We get money for those. And also the number of students that are court placed, which means they're in juvenile detention center. We get money for those.
That but it's falling down because we're getting reimbursed more.
Yes, we're getting more students that are either migrant, foster, or in prison.
And then legal fees, they were listed twice.
One-
One was under student services and the other one was under business of
Board.
services.
Yes, the board services one is the one that does your like general legal solicitor stuff, your personnel work, your board work. The other one is your legal firm that does just special education work. You have two sets of attorneys.
So the special education requires the additional.
Yes,
fee.
he is the one, that firm is Sweet Stevens, and they only do special education work. So when you have a student and you're going to do process, or they're suing you for a violation of a 504 or an IEP, or that firm handles all of the special education work. And they are also approved by your insurance company. So if you end up in litigation or a settlement or those kind of things with special education, which you've seen on your agendas, they handle all of that work. And then there's like maxes on how much you pay versus then the insurance company takes over, because they have to be approved by the insurance carriers.
And there'll be time to ask many questions down the road.
Mhm.
Because this is just one of those for Dr. Shank.
Now-
So,
The questions would be, I know that we started getting that readings stuff and the other special ed services and hired more personnel, correct? Remember?
Mhm.
Is what we're spending and what we, like, where's the balance? How much that's, is our investment in special ed is actually hurting us, or how does it financially balances out?
Well, I can tell you that if you have one special ed case, where the attorney has to do all of the writing of the settlements, you're probably out, and just legal fees alone, you will spend on your legal fees alone, you will spend between 20 and 30,000. You also have to pay their legal fees.
Mhm.
If you go to due process, you'll spend between $50,000 and $60,000. The teachers that you hire are probably between 80 and 90,000, which if you can get the services and the IEPs in place and never have to go to a due process hearing or a mediation, or even have to involve lawyers, saves, they have 18 to 24 students on their caseload and versus one child and one lawyer. And the nice thing that we've done is I write a lot of our settlements for us, and then because you're already paying me, and then I send them to the attorneys and they just clean up the language to make sure I didn't miss anything. So then instead of paying them, $285 an hour, you pay them for the 15 minutes it takes for them to tweak it and make sure it's tight. So I have all of the templates set up that we kind of fill it in. Which is, you'll see one of those tonight on transportation, and I write it, send it to them, they approve it, make sure that I didn't miss anything. Versus sending it to them and then they write it, then they bill you for, like, the lawyers, they bill you for 20 minutes.
all those handy little things over to the
Yeah.
person.
That depends on who you are, what their background is. But yes, it has changed you, and it also has allowed us not to place right now it's November, but there are 3 students that would have had to have been placed had we not hired that. And those students would have cost between $70,000 and $85,000 a piece in just tuition had you not hired that teacher.
Okay, yeah, that was my next question,
Yeah.
to see how many we had outsourced before and how many actually took up the,
We didn't, we only brought one back. The key is we have not sent any out. Because we've been able to restructure the program internally, that we've had other steps in place that we didn't have to move to that step right away.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that of those 3 young people today, that one of them may end up by March having to need more services than we can provide. For a lot of different reasons, but at this point, which is still not $85,000 because it's not a full year. But there's
Also the transportation and everything.
yes, and then I'm just talking straight tuition at between 70 and 85,000. So it's really money well spent. Plus, you maintain the trust with the parent because you're not saying we're going to send your kid away.
And then God knows what can happen the way over.
Yes, it's just and special ed is all legal anymore. It's crazy. Okay. Salary estimates. So based on discussion, what I put together and I set it up in a different format for you to think about is just straight positions so that if you choose to hire a facilities director, going rate right now for 260 at 93 positions, a salary based is 85. Benefit package is always budgeted at family insurance what we're anticipating to be the 23-24 rates, which would be 42,427. So your total budgetary impact would then be an additional 127,427. So the next one would be like the director of transportation, which would be right now to get somebody really good on an 8-hour day is 65,000. The next column is your benefit package, and then your total budgetary impact. The other option that you would have, if you could find the right person, would be to combine those two, facilities and transportation together, which is a long day, and it is you got to have the right person because the knowledge base in both of those areas can sometimes be very hard to come by, which is why it's a higher salary. And then the nuances of knowing, right-hand pickups, no dirt roads, no cul-de-sacs, all the other stuff would be about 120 would be your high cap on that. You could probably come down a little bit, but I went on the higher end. Family insurance, just to keep everything on the benefits equal, would be about 50. And then total budget impact is 170. And then at one of the meetings, we talked about the difference between this would be the superintendent secretary. So the district cost with benefits, 263 secretary, 8 hours a day, $16 an hour, which is kind of the going rate. District cost for salary would be at 33,280. Benefit package on with family insurance and all the rest of the pieces that go in that is 31,274. So that position in district higher on district payroll is 64,564. That same person hired and paid through SOS. Job description is the same, everything else is the same. They just get the check through SOS. You still control the hiring, who it is, the interviewing, all of the rest of it. They just pay the person. It's $24.64 an hour. That person does have benefits as well. The total outlay is $51,251. So that's the difference between on your payroll versus SOS's payroll. Everything else stays the same. You still control the hiring, who it is, the interviewing, the choosing, all of the other
That's a
stuff.
no-brainer.
What's that? That's no brainer.
That's a no-brainer.
And then the next set, and I just laid it out just to give you an idea. Going rate right now, from what I can tell in the county, or Berks County anyway, is a range for assistant superintendents and superintendents is running for a smaller district is running between assistant superintendent at 145 and a superintendent at 190. So when you take that and then you put the benefit package with it, you see the ranges for a 145 assistant superintendent would be the budgetary impact on that would be 200, a little over 200. And then a superintendent coming in at 190 with the benefit package would be 256.01. And then I just laid it out in the 5,000, 185, 190, just because you can pick anything in the middle, but it kind of gives you a range of what salary or areas you want to, as you're working through these processes, what your budgetary pieces are going to be. I think that's what people were asking for with the salary and the benefits, and then what the budget is and why it works the way it does.
We're doing the right now, facilities director and director of transportation.
I do facilities, and then I do part of transportation, and then Barry Chrisman does part of transportation.
And how many hours does Barry do now?
He does 4, but he works 8.
He does 4. He's
paid for 4, but he works really 8.
And just for report, he plans on retiring
December 31st,
this year, next year.
next 23.
Okay.
And how many secretary positions do we have now in the school district?
I would have to count them, but we don't have any extras, if that's what you're asking. There's nobody that we could pull from anywhere else. I mean, the buildings are finally staffed. There's not anybody that you could move.
okay. Board should take some time and look at that and come up with some ideas on where you think we should head with those positions, and because we need to tie that in as soon as we can tie it in, so we can look at a budget. So it's important that we do that, important we have discussion on it.
And then the last piece, I just put some numbers together just because of the others, the discussion about BCTC and transportation and all of that. But what the numbers that we have contracted with for next year through your transportation contract, BCTC buses, we run 2 buses in the morning to East. So the rate per day is 54, 180 days. So you see your rate, 1 bus to West in the afternoon. His original number on that, just to give you a frame of reference before we did the contract negotiation, was almost 300. So by putting it in the contract and fighting with him, because I was pretty good at that, it got you down to, almost saved you $94 a day. So that's your biggest run, because it's, it's a lease port. So you're looking at, and then the other piece, and I have reminded my colleagues, even tonight when I was working with Governor Mifflin, before the meeting, is when they calculate their costs for their districts, not to forget the fuel costs. Because right now for this year, 22-23, fuel costs even on the bid are high at we're paying $3.18 or almost 19 cents a gallon, and that's on the bid prices for fuel. So when you factor that in, and a bus only gets about an average 10 miles a gallon, and then this is just driving miles, not sitting in the parking lot waiting for students to get on and off miles. So you're looking at another, $27 a day in just fuel costs for all your buses. So rough estimates for you for next year, you're looking at, a little over $56,000 in just anticipated transportation costs for 1 year. And then that'll continue to go up every year, in the transportation, which I spelled wrong. I just saw that. Sorry about that. So you have to keep that in mind as you're building it every year. That'll go up in his contract, in your 6-year contract. But who knows what, diesel fuel is going to be for buses a year from now. Because we really kind of, when we bid it with the IU, we kind of bid it in sections just because everybody knows how fuel was last spring and then around, Memorial Day. So we were lucky to get it at 3,189. So you'll be seeing that we'll build that into that. That's built into that transportation number. When you see it go up, even though we're running less buses, that number is in there as well. And then we are anticipating sending more students to BCTC. So then you're not going to see the savings that you may see in the BCTC budget. And so we just want to make sure that, which is not a bad problem to have because you have more students there. But when you hear that we're saving 6%, you're not going to be saving 6%.
Right.
So.
Well, thank you for getting the number down as far as you could. I appreciate
So,
it.
In terms of the actual numbers would be, we average about 72 a year, I believe, students. And one of the counselors mentioned, we're almost at 100.
Yeah, I have that.
So that's a
for you.
substantial increase.
Yeah.
So, which is a good thing, but there's a price to pay for that.
Correct.
Yeah, no choice on this.
And then the last question under budget that I have for you, which is kind of budget, personnel and negotiations at the same time. I was approached by OVA whether or not last year, the contract does not have a retirement incentive in it. Should I put one together?
So 2023.
22-23.
For this.
Yeah, the contract does not have one. Do you want to think about it and let me know
Yeah.
on Wednesday?
I would certainly put
I
it
mean,
together.
It's basically the same thing we've always
Yeah,
done. I
We've
mean,
always done it, and it certainly doesn't hurt us.
no.
So
And if it helps them
I
a
would
little bit.
recommend you put one together, at least so we can read it.
And I could draft it for
Yes,
Wednesday.
please. That would be good.
What is
Just
that?
It's we usually do a retirement incentive. There's one in the contract going forward, but the last year of the contract, when you negotiate, you never put in like a retirement incentive into it. You always sunset it a year early. Because what happens is that when you're negotiating, the assumption is that it continues to roll. And you never want to have something like a retirement incentive roll from one contract to the next. You want to always have that as a way to negotiate, kind of like in your back pocket. From the board's perspective. And so what we try to do is then have one like this last year, so that if somebody's thinking about retirement, if you can entice them a little bit with an incentive to retirement, you take $135,000 position and maybe hire somebody who's cheaper, and then you kind of save the money in doing that. Plus it helps the employee who's thinking about it that maybe they're ready to retire. Because it's been a crazy 3 or 4 years between, just COVID and everything. So it's good for them and it's also good for the district as you move forward. So
Minimum.
we haven't been putting minimums in.
Okay.
And it's just a matter of the only thing I've really been putting in is if you're Medicare eligible or disability retirement, have been the 2 caveats.
Okay. Yeah, if you could
How
do
many
that
do
for
you
us.
think we will have?
It's hard to tell because of the way public education is right now and how much everybody is getting beat up royally, both in the TV news, everything else. But it's not. Teachers are struggling with mental health right now.
Mhm.
And so there are some people who I know are like thinking about it if they can or they can't. Is it worth it? And then the stress and the health.
Mhm.
And they're trying to weigh out quality of life versus quantity of years. Take a cut and then go work at Kohl's and be able to go home and just
There's a
enjoy
lot of people that are really have never considered retiring at say 30, 31, 32
Yep.
years, because 35 is your magic number. So
Mhm.
there are people now that are willing to say, you know what, I can do better with a part-time job
Yep.
with less stress and less being scrutinized every day.
Yeah.
And
It's brutal.
they're saying, you know what, I'll go out there, because right now you can almost name your price on anything you'd like to do.
Then why would you want to put the retirement incentive
because it still benefits our district. It still benefits our district.
Yeah.
Money wise, and it also benefits the people that have a situation where we don't need someone who, let's just say, is struggling. Sitting in front of children every day and getting stressed out and maybe not doing everything they need to do. We're here to be proactive and help them. And also, we have to look at new people who are coming in. And that gives us the opportunity, a longer opportunity to get a better teacher than wait till June, July, August to try and find a teacher, which becomes almost impossible. And it is impossible now because the candidates aren't there anymore. So it gives us a jump to get ahead. And that's what we've always tried to do, to get the best people in the classrooms for our kids.
Yeah, wouldn't it also incentivize more turnovers?
Mm-mm.
Well, again, if we're trying to incentivize
Yeah,
folks that are at the higher end of the career, so you're saving somebody who's making $85,000-$90,000 a year, you're hoping to hire somebody who's making $45,000-$50,000.
And that's where you're saving
Trying
money.
to incentivize that
Right.
person that's making 85.
Right, if somebody's on the fence.
Yeah.
Leave her
And that person that's on the fence might be sitting at 33 years and go, if you give me 10,000,
I'm out.
that's certainly gonna incentivize me, I'm out. And it gets to the point where, some of your best teachers, they're at their best in their last year. Because they're now on their way out and they're gonna make sure that they've done the best job because they're gonna miss their kids. Or you can look at the other hand, there are people in their last year that say, here's your worksheet.
Yep.
So there's a 50-50 cut on those teachers, Andrew. And some of them are very prideful and, you don't get an edge to breathe at all because they're in their game face.
Or they're out
Or they're out
every other day.
every other day, so. And then then we have to pay more for the substitutes coming in, so. That's the other thing. Okay, together. Information doc.
Yeah, your next meeting is the 12th of December. And just a reminder, whoever's gonna end up being president and vice president will need the committee list by the 12th, because that's the first night of the new committee meetings, if there's any changes. And Ming has submitted 2057, which is the AFR, to PDE on the 31st for Halloween.
Thank you, Doc. On to personnel.
For personnel, looks like we have 5 regular items. Dr. Funky, run us through those, please.
The number one is just the addendum to the contract for school operations service, the SOS group from last meeting. We did miss, and I didn't pick it up until after you approved it. I missed the full-time lead custodian, the 2695 was not on the contract. So I just had him do an addendum with the new bill rates, put that on there, and that's all that changes. Everything else is the same. Just want to make sure it's approved and in the file that you had that. Number 2 is an FMLA leave for Mr. Blatt from December 2nd to on about February 24th. And 3 is more volunteers, a long list for elementary, which is great. And music volunteer and Mrs. Samuelson. Number 4 is a trip that was missed on the agenda last month, so it's coming back around for the second time. Mrs. Breen and Mrs. Negri's request to go to the Social Studies Conference in Philadelphia, and cost is $2,081.
A question, when they go to those conferences, is that mandatory? Is that required for their,
No,
or it's just basically elective? And
selective,
Selected.
so, and why do we have 2 people going?
because that they both asked to go
Both
together.
asked to go.
So basically, they don't, is there other option, like a Zoom or something if they want to do it?
They probably split, they got different sessions. They're not sitting in the same session. But-
So is there any benefit to the school district for this?
Better rounded counselors, more better rounded counselors, more experienced counselors. I mean,
Social studies.
I'm sorry, social studies.
Socially.
I was thinking, I thought council, but
So
social
are
studies
we
teachers.
looking at the new curriculum? Are we looking at something else?
Their curriculum's rewritten, you've already approved all of that, they're not looking at materials, they're not looking at books, there's no changes in social studies for middle school.
Then what's the necessity of the?
They've asked to go. So that they've asked to go and they're allowed theirs to go.
We have a trip to Hawaii.
Yeah, we can. You can visit them, you can say, "Let's go for a-" and we can send them in. But they have a book they asked to go. They will learn about social studies, but they're probably members of the National Council of Social Studies.
And that's the one that's.
You sent
Yeah, I guess-
Yeah.
Yeah, we're the itinerary. They'll be busy.
And most times when teachers go to things like this, when they come back, they share their ideas with the other teachers too. So it's not just the two of them that will benefit from them. It'll be all social studies teachers who will benefit from it.
Couldn't just one person go?
Sure.
Because like, what's the point of two going when they're still sharing?
Well, they're,
Well, they can go to more
They can go more sessions.
sessions. And it's already included in the
You come
budget.
back and you have dinner with that person and you talk about what you learned in your session and they share what they learned in their session.
Different breakout
And-
sessions,
Yeah.
correct?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and then you can, like you
Different
said,
topics.
talk to your other teachers, you can improve your. And what you do by not, I mean, it's professional development. It's like anything
Mhm.
else. You become a better person.
Well,
By
there's also
learning
three
stuff.
courses online for professional development too, right?
It's not
Yeah.
the same, yeah.
No, it's not the same thing.
It's not.
It's not also meeting with other colleagues and sitting in a room with 25 other teachers and talking about curriculum, and
Person going.
you can make the choice on who goes then. You can have that split up. It's a,
Good to have.
no.
And pick who's gonna go.
Then you come down to how many years of service, and that's another problem. So right now, we have two people that have asked to go. And it comes down to the question, if you move it forward, does your committee want to move it forward? And do you have enough people to vote for those two people to go? That's where we're at.
well, they're clearly, they're going for two. They're not going to learn the same exact thing. Correct?
No.
I mean,
That is 10 seconds.
different sections, the two people going are
When
gonna,
we used to go,
sort of divide and conquer.
we would sit down and we would pick the sessions.
As long as that's what's happening.
Aaron, so what's the benefit, like literally, if we already have the curriculum.
I go to
I go to
Job
education all the time.
things for work that cost my company.
It makes you more effective in the
I mean,
classroom.
there's certain
And when,
technologies and things.
on the other thing, we couldn't even look at the curriculum because now, I mean, at the sessions they offered. The National Council of Social Studies, I believe did you say it was a federal level?
It's a national conference, yeah.
It's a national conference. That's where you get more of the CRT and all the other stuff.
No.
No.
So,
National conference, you're gonna get bigger. Presenters that are gonna go to a national conference as opposed to local. And so you might get a higher level speaker there than you would somewhere else.
and we couldn't even look over what they're gonna be talking about. Because it's no longer offered.
Do you not trust them?
No, why should I?
Why?
Why
They're teaching your children.
Hold on,
You don't
no,
trust them?
I'm not.
Well,
No, I don't.
I would like to see,
Down
it would be
in
nice
this
to know
curriculum.
Looks like those two people are not listening tonight.
what they're discussing.
They are.
No, but the thing is, it's not about people, it's about actually what's getting taught.
It's already in the budget. It's coming out of the middle school budget. It's not like it's extra money. The middle school has a certain amount of budgeted for professional development. Is that not true? All levels do.
All levels do.
And I have it where the rubber meets the road. If you know Mrs. Breen. And you know what she does in her classroom, special projects that involve all the middle school and beyond. She has brought some fantastic projects.
Teaching strategies, collaboration,
Totally
all those things.
Totally different, than a lot of other teachers. So I think as their own personal development, we owe them that. Go out, see some new ideas, bring them back and share them.
I'm excited they want to go.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't want to go anymore because it's a hassle. They'd rather just stay, I'll just back up and not go. So I commend them for at least bringing it forward to say, I want to go.
And they come back excited.
Yeah.
They come back excited about what they learned. Exactly.
So
Our committee supports this?
Definitely.
Okay, good. Next one.
Jen Hoffman. Jen Hoffman is to attend Pete and C at Kalahari from the 12th to the 15th. She is presenting at the conference on all of this, the Pete and C is a technology conference. So she's presenting on Infinite Campus, she's presenting on Schoology and how we use it on STEM K-12. that's why her registration is all free. She is going up. They have to check in on a certain date anyway, but her pre-conference session is basically 65. So she does not want to go to the meet and greet social activity. She wants to actually go to the conference pre-session when she wants to learn. The hotel and mileage at $685.
Questions on that one? Mr. Bob, there's one other subject you and I both had emails going out today.
Mhm.
You want to cover that now or under?
No, let's just cover it now. So real quick, for those of you who don't know, I guess everybody here does, and if there's 2 or 3 people listening in out there, Dr. Shank's current contract expires at the end of December 2023, where it is anticipated she'll retire from superintendency, although I know Dr. Tracy Shank, she'll find another challenge. But because of this, the school board decided to get started on the search for a new superintendent. And because of the complexities of this level of talent search, we're investigating getting assistance from professional search services. So specifically to date, we have reached out to and received proposals from the BCIU, Templeton Advantage, and PSBA. We had a great, very informative presentation from BCIU on October 19th. And then tonight, I thought we just discussed this. Recently, I sent out the stuff I received from Templeton and PSBA. Tom Templeton reached out to me via text. I asked him an email over the weekend if he'd be willing to come speak. He sent a text this morning and said, yeah, he'd love to come talk to us. And he'll get back to me with times and dates. He didn't get a chance to get back to me today. I actually might have missed it. I missed a phone call. I wasn't sure who it was from. So I hadn't a chance to talk to him. So I just wanted to put it out there. See what our interests are. Again, I also shared with you the cost. From the presentation, we know BCIU is essentially free, save for some expenses that we might incur on the advertisements. Templeton Advantage was essentially $15,000, $13,500 plus what he anticipates about usually $1,500 in expenses. And then PSBA had 2 tiers of service. One of them was $5,000 for just like a general search support. And then they had a $15,000 service level, which was a very comprehensive search. And again, the details of it were in the stuff I emailed you guys. So I didn't want to, go into the details of each of those presentations or those proposals tonight, but.
Last meeting, I asked the solicitor to send the links to the other companies and also the ones that are not involved or going to benefit one way or the other from hiring a superintendent, which is conflict of interest, BCIU and PSBA both. So I
don't understand. I don't understand what you said there.
I'm sorry, BCIU just bluntly pretty much said whatever is going to work with Dr. Hackman, whoever is going to be working with her, that's going to be preference. I'm sorry, but that's not how it should be going. It should be going with the best of the school.
Okay, I didn't.
That was right there. So.
I
And that's-
actually made it very clear that it's our process.
Yeah.
Yes. Excuse me, listen, they don't have a vote in any of this, then that's it, they have no influence on it.
I have with that is actually having that BCIU is already pretty much have somebody targeted for our school district. This is the rumors going around and
it's
that's
a rumor.
That's just a rumor.
It's a rumor.
because the last thing I want to do is actually having somebody determining who is going to be sitting in that chair instead of Dr. Shank.
We determine that.
We determine that. Doesn't have anything to do
Who's
with
going to
it.
be filtering it?
We will.
We will.
We will do that
You
too.
didn't pay.
They're not going to have any applicants. They're going to present us all the applicants.
Right.
Exactly.
I would like to have somebody who's absolutely impartial to this process.
And we're willing to
hire
pay the
one search
$15,000 of taxpayer money. For the.
Yes, it's worth.
I'd rather spend it on students. I'm sorry, I'd rather spend it on students. I'm gonna spend it on students.
The superintendent.
And
So
I'm gonna
that's-
spend it on students. That's the difference.
Get what you pay.
Right?
Let's pull this back for a minute. All I'm curious about is, do we want to move forward?
With interviews.
Do we want to talk to Mr. Templeton? We want,
Absolutely, and also I would like to see the other links that solicitor said there was other options. I would like to actually have his,
when he sent me, I just reached out to the ones he sent to me. The ones I told you about, Templeton,
Oh, because.
he's PSBA, he did say another IU unit, Chester County.
Just
Or
can't.
about 13.
But they never got back to me. I mean, I left a message. It was weird. I called the number, somebody's name, they sent me to somebody's office. I left a message with this, the secretary and never heard it back. So it might have just got lost in translation somewhere and I can reach back out, but I think I got an impression it was like less than 15, but would you say 13,000?
13 is usually Templeton, and that's actually a 9-month deal.
Right.
Because he does the whole transition and everything with helping to figure out what it is that you want before you even start to,
Right.
like that's the other piece that
Oh, he's got skin in the game.
Well,
they all have.
that's
They
to-
all have skin in the game.
Everybody has.
Everybody does.
The other,
You have a situation with the BCIU that there's no charge, okay? There's no charge except the things that we absolutely have to pay for. I didn't have to be at that meeting because I couldn't be, but I heard the presentation. I've been through the process on both sides from the BCIU, on both sides. I can tell you, there's not gonna be any picking by the BCIU. The BCIU is a guide for us.
okay, well, this.
It's a guide for us, and I agree with Dawn. There's no way in this green earth. But when we're spending money, I want to spend another 15 to 25,000 on a situation where we'll get the same exact candidates from the BCIU as we would Tom Templeton. The same exact candidates.
Same candidates.
You'll get the same
They're
candidates.
gonna be the same.
They're going to be the same candidates.
Advertise to the same things.
They advertise through the same.
Things you can advertise to people.
Difference is the process.
And the
Same candidate, but your process is going to be different. If the BCIU process is very much, the board is in control.
Right.
The board,
Which is what you wanted.
the board is going to have to figure out among the board what we call in my world, and when we interview administrators, what is your leadership profile?
Mhm.
What is it that you want? What is it that you value? What is it that the board is going, not only this board, but what is the next board going to need? What is your vision for the next 3 to 5 years? What is it that's what is your strengths, weaknesses of the district? What is it that you want changed? What you want done differently? All that other transition stuff that needs to be done. The IU sits back on that and lets the board come to consensus on that. Tom Templeton and I believe depending on who PSBA search consultant, who their is.
Shane Pegnight.
Oh, Shane, yeah, Shane will do the same thing. And is that they will come in and help you through that process. That's kind of what you're paying for, is they will help take a board and kind of like lead you through the process of coming to consensus of what it is that you need and what do you want and how do you get, people that have different views and different ideas on what it should be, and how do you come together to say, this is the view of what, in a perfect world, this is what we want in our candidate. Now, how do we find the person that fits this image, and not a person who can come in and do what we call a dog and pony show and tell you everything you want to hear, and they walk in here and they can't do the job. Because we all know that a lot of people can interview really well,
Very well.
but they can't do the job.
Can't do a job.
So that's the difference between the two styles. And that's why you spend the money on one and one on the other. And the IU style is different because that's what they do. And they do it well for boards that want that complete style, that you sit down in a work session and you all have to figure out yourselves, what is it that you want for the next 3, 5, 7 years? And what your strengths, weaknesses, what do you like, what you don't want, what do you want changed, all those other pieces, and where do you want to go? And because I can tell you, when I took over, I said all that myself. I've been on my own. I think I said it to Mrs. Zach a week or two ago. I've been on my own for 11 years. It's been the most isolated job I have had in 34 years. And I worked in industry and I worked in education, but I've never felt so alone than I have in this job. So your next person wants to succeed, you cannot do that to them. You have to support them. You have to be a team of 10, not against one. So you have to, even though you may not like each other or agree with each other, for that person's sake and the sake of the success of this district and the students and staff of this district, you got to figure out what you want. Because I saw it when you interviewed the assistant principals. Like, just because one person could talk a lot and not really say much, doesn't mean that person could do the job, or somebody else is like very direct and knew his stuff. But you got to base it on the personality you see in a 45-minute interview. Or are you going to say, and that's what you like? Or are you going to say, this is the vision that we have for the district, and this is what the board wants, and we are in consensus, and whether we totally agree or not, the 9 of you have to be on the same page. Or you're going to have a problem.
And there's one piece that Dr. Schenk just said that you really got to hear. Her work ethic is above anyone else. My work ethic was above anyone else. We stayed the course. 16 years, and she's gonna have over 15 years. When you hire this person, you better hope this person has that same intestinal fortitude to stay from 3 to 4 years.
Yep.
The average right now is about 3.5. I mean, that's the other thing you have to look at. When you look at paying these people to come in and do this, that's wonderful. They're going to hold your hand. They're going to walk you through it. We can do that with the BCIU, because the other thing is, you may not find the one candidate that can do this job in the first go round.
That's right.
Okay, and then you want to pay another go round or a percentage that they're talking about. You're going to get the candidates. Even these candidates, they're not looking at salary anymore. They're looking at what's the package? What's the district? Where am I going to go? How many kids are in that district? How many teachers are in that? What is the situation? Has the last superintendent been there a long time? Has the board been there a long time? These are things that these people look at. They don't really look at. We never look at when I applied for assistant super. I look at the salary. We're looking at the position.
Not anymore.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, but now, yeah, because now people are going into jobs. Because I do a lot of consulting work, prepping people for jobs. I mean, and what they're looking at, and I can tell you, everybody laughs at me in the county because I have the worst contract in the entire county. Because the best perk I have 2 years of healthcare. My admin got 1, I got 2. I have no car allowance, I have no gas allowance, I have no 403B contribution, all standard in a superintendent contract today. I do 4 jobs for the price of 1. I am the senior superintendent in the county. And as you saw on the list that was handed out, one of the most paid ones in the county, which is what it is. But at the same time, like, people are going to look at that. They're going to want to come in, and like, even in Kutztown, who's a phenomenal guy, but he's 4th year superintendent and then his package is well over 225. He's getting his guaranteed $5,000 to $7,000 raises. There's people getting guaranteed $10,000 raises. There's people getting 403Bs. They're getting car allowances, gas allowances. You have to look at the package standpoint, not just a salary standpoint.
We're getting way ahead of ourselves here. We just need to decide who's going to help us do this.
I'm gonna make two comments.
Good, please.
One is the other parts is our input, but also the community's input. The community being our employees, our teachers, our students, all the Olney Valley community. There's potential with the IU to survey those people. And again, that may list not be that useful to us, but the next superintendent can certainly use that. I think we can also use that list as a roadmap. What's the community really telling us what they want in the school district? The other thing is timing. This is not new to anybody. We've been talking about this for a long while. And if you look at the information I sent out today, if we move on this on Wednesday, the IU is ready to have documentation that we can review and approve to do a press release to the community. We can start, they will start the survey. We have the survey examples already sent out to you. That can be modified and the like. The idea is December 1st, they could start the survey, they could start the ad to go out. That's pretty much done. We may have to tweak that, but timing, and Dana, you said, what's the rush? Quite frankly, I think I'm in a big rush to beat the competition also. So we're the first district out there, and there was at least one other superintendent, maybe more. I want to be the one who's out front getting the resumes that are like in here into our hands and only our hands as early as possible.
I don't want to rush the process.
It's aggressive.
On the time,
It's
I
aggressive.
disagree with
It's
you,
aggressive.
because usually, I believe that's what discussed earlier. People try to consider leaving at the end of the school year. So they don't want to be stepping forward and be exposed where possibly could jump the ship.
Well, we can discuss the time. I think PCA was aggressive. Is like, we sign something this week. If we sign some Wednesday, we're off to the races. I don't want to do that.
Agenda.
What BCIU is.
I do not.
What is it?
I do not trust BCIU. I've got reports from different school districts that BCIU,
You know, when I heard that, I
not
heard that it was gonna be the BCIU. I thought the same thing, because other districts have not hired well, in my opinion. And I thought, as she was speaking, it wasn't the BCIU, it was the board's responsibility, not the BCIU. So it's not the BCIU's fault that they did not hire well. It was that board.
I'm sorry, but I think
They-
they're just hiring.
I'm
They're
sorry?
hiring to help somebody to help to navigate the process. So if BCIU is not the right fit to help the board to hire the right candidate and to hire well, then we need to look elsewhere. Then
But
we
it
need to
wasn't,
find
no,
out-
my realization was that it was the board's responsibility, not the BCIU. And so that also that they were $0 was my decision.
Do we want to hear from Mr. Templeton just to get
Absolutely.
another point of, just to hear what somebody else has to offer? I'm not saying other than,
See, I don't want to waste his time. He's a very busy man.
oh, I know he is.
He's a very busy man. I don't want to waste his time.
Seems
That's
like
not
he's
fair.
okay with that.
That's not fair.
So you're saying bringing him in because you already decided on the BCIU. I'm just asking, I mean, if you're absolutely right. I do not want to bring the man in and waste this time.
It's a-
We're not going to consider.
Well,
They're all busy. I mean, that's his job.
And I don't want to have him come in and
see if it's even an option.
That's,
Do we want to determine who is comfortable with the BCIU at this point and would vote for the BCIU? To see, do we even have a majority of people that want the BCIU? Because if we bring somebody in, are we going to change? our
That's
minds?
unfair. Then
Yeah.
bring him in.
It would,
So
I
I
wouldn't
would-
imagine, but it would give us a better idea and not waste Mr.
Just a quick straw vote. So what are we asking? Who basically, the people who decide they want to use BCIU tonight?
Yeah.
You gonna go that route?
Yeah.
Right? Who decided they'd like to go with BCIU? 3, 4, we got 5.
I'd like to have the committee put a motion forward for this coming Wednesday and see what happens.
But they're very aggressive. We need to back that down. That's too aggressive.
Well, we can absolutely change it. It's our process.
Exactly, thank you.
Actually not an interview, another candidate. And already jump into the conclusion.
Because I know him personally, I know the process, I know the people personally. And you can go on his website and get a lot of information.
And
I don't
great
need to
things
see
about
him.
Mr. Templeton.
He's a great guy,
Yeah.
great guy,
Yeah, he was very nice.
great guy.
He is extremely, I heard good things about him, that he is knowledgeable, that he is
He's
gonna help
awesome.
this process.
I like Charlie and Musso and I like Anthony McCarthy. They're great guys,
We make the final decision.
right?
We make the final decision. They're doing the periphery to help us. Honestly, we could do it ourselves. But it's nice to have the BCIU come in.
Not doing it.
Come in and do this for us. That's helpful. But we make the decision to hire. We interview, we make the decision.
So why we not, why are you already making the
I
decision?
mean, I don't want to spend money.
Templeton,
I don't want to spend, I've been through that so much.
Okay,
I've been through the process. I understand.
Damn it. The people, they're great guys, they're worth every penny.
No doubt about it. But I'm
They're
not, I
worth every
cannot
penny, but I don't.
spend money.
I mean, I taught for 40 years here. I dealt with the BCIU. I went to all their programs. I taught there for them and everything like that. And I don't know where your distrust is coming from.
I saw.
And I think to
It's
throw with the bathwater. It's not the school board. It's not the-
needed more, if the boards needed more help to hire the right candidate, and the help was not provided, and they had a bad hire. And there's school district after school district after school district. then we should probably take a different route.
Why? Because it was the boards at heart. The schools.
Yes,
The school board decided, not BCIU. You're not hearing the bottom line here.
I am hearing the bottom line, and I feel.
You know, part of the reason, you know, we're supposed to be a group of.
Question.
It's just trying to keep it civil.
No, I'm doing my due diligence, and I believe that we should have a
I hear you.
right to actually hear the other person out. So instead of jumping and making a decision for everybody else, thank you very much. But I also would like to have the other person.
Go on
and
and
present.
Bring.
Aaron, I wanted to ask
You make a decision.
If you don't mind, you had said you thought there was a,
No.
you thought there was something behind it. I forget what you just said. You thought they had an agenda. I wasn't sure what, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I was just curious what made you think that.
It just seems like. I think there would be a certain filtering process that they would steer certain people a certain way towards us.
Okay, so I didn't get that impression, but I wasn't sure. Maybe you know something. Impression from their, especially when they gave us the list of where they advertised, which was like,
And we're gonna get everybody's resume, everybody's.
Yeah.
well, I guess that's the concern. Right.
Yeah,
That's my
Everything is going to be pre-programmed. Oh, by the way, there's going to be the questions you're going to be asked. Here you go.
the other thing is I talked to 8 school districts through my contacts with Berkshire Technology Center that have used the IU for searches. And the reports are very positive. They do guide you through the process, but it's your process. You make the final decision. And one district I know is not using them now because they have an heir apparent internally. And why even bother? They're just give it to the heir apparent. But the comments have been very, very positive, and everybody's been very emphatic. The 9 board members voted on it. In some cases, they'll admit they made some bad votes. But it was not because of anything that the IU had done.
Settled. And I came to that realization while she was talking. And I won't settle.
Good, Zach. Was there something to say?
I have options, and I like and that's their job to come in and present what they have to offer. I'm really leaning toward BCIU. I mean, I love saving the money. Right now, we're talking about spending a lot of money on a lot of things. And I just found that I didn't pick up on anything that put up a red flag for the presentation, me personally. They basically built out a guideline. Now, I can't imagine that they could filter something out of our knowledge. I mean, we're going to get all applicants, but I do like seeing options. So I'm not opposed to seeing this other gentleman present what he has to offer, because if it is a slightly different procedure with how they do things, I still don't like spending the money. Don't get me wrong, but I do like seeing options, because when I go to certain things, I say, wow, I wouldn't have thought about spending money, but man, that sounds like, it gets you thinking a little bit. So I'm never opposed to seeing options. So I think it's very aggressive with trying to vote for that this Wednesday. I really do. It's just me personally, but even though I'm leaning towards saving the money. I don't think they're going to sway us one way or the other. We actually get to present the questions. That I thought they were very clear about. Hey, we get to present the questions when I ask them.
Right.
They're basically going to give us a little guidance. They're going to do surveys, very basic stuff.
And I think
That I
they all-
feel nefarious if they were going to be doing something, but that's what I have to offer. That's it.
No, I appreciate that. After last meeting, I pretty much thought it was a fait accompli. We were going to hire him, but I reached out, I thought we should do our due diligence. I asked Ben, and he gave me a couple of contacts, and I reached out to him, and Hamilton it took him a day or two. When he got back to me, if you know him, he's a very personal person. And by the end of the phone call, I'm like, no, curious what this guy has to offer. But I have to admit, in the back of my mind, I was even like, I really would just like to save the money. So my curiosity to bring him in just to see what he offers that would be different from BCIU, but I also I'm saying I don't want to waste anybody's time if we know it's not going to happen.
And time is money.
I mean, I guess I would say this. I know it sounds like it, what's $15,000?
It's half of a, it's half of a,
If we find a person.
half
that
of an
can do
acre.
a couple of extra of these tasks, then we don't have to hire somebody at $102,000.
Exactly.
What's $15,000?
A lot of money.
That's good thing if you can find somebody that can do a couple of these, or at least one.
But there's no reason BCIU couldn't find it. I mean, just to argue aside. Well, just to roll back a little more, no matter who we decide on, and this is why I want to slow this down just a little bit, Bob. I want us to sit down, have an exec session, and say, what do we want? Because we need to go into that meeting with that person knowing on this list what we're looking for. We can't sit down and say, what do they want to do, and then have them tell us how we're going to work it. We're going to say, no, you know what, if you come in, you're going to be doing this job, and this job. Is this the job for you? And that needs to go out in the information from BCIU to the candidate. So I don't want to just run out the door with what she, I mean, it was a very generic, very open kind of thing. And I think, again, whoever we decide, I want us to sit down and have that discussion, argument, whatever you want to call them amongst ourselves. What are we actually looking for?
The information.
We can't afford these 4 people. We just can't, right? I mean, if these numbers are even close to accurate, we can't afford these.
Proper help in hiring,
What's that?
and we can't afford not to help, to have proper help in hiring. And proper. governance.
I see, I think BCI will give us proper.
I would say it would be worth it to hear the different, what sets him apart from the BCIU,
Exactly.
and I'm hearing nothing. Which that doesn't make sense. Why would he even have a job?
Bunch of minds have been made
Do you know
up.
what I'm saying?
You know, districts that can afford it. Because they can afford it. We can't.
So plus,
You can go down the list and also mark down the other things the district can't afford.
but his,
Where
Mr. Templeton provides services. Once you've actually hired a superintendent, then he goes beyond that. He helps you develop their evaluation criteria. He actually sets up workshops with them and the community and the school board to, you know, he does a lot of hand holding and kumbaya stuff, which again is beneficial. And I'm sure you get your money's worth $15,000. I'm not trying to say you don't. I think the BCIU would be very helpful, but I think it'll stop short of some of that stuff. But again,
But all the magic that
$15,000.
Frank does, as far as like making the money happen, I'm sure you probably can make another magic happen, right?
Oh, I could find it. That's not a problem. I mean, you're in good shape for this year.
So.
It's a matter of what you want.
I'm not spending.
Okay, well,
Money should not be a determination of who we're gonna go for. We need to.
We already have.
I was gonna say, we took a straw vote. We had 5. Did anybody change their minds in the last 5 minutes?
Let's get her on the agenda for next week. You and I, we should talk a little bit more. Sounds like Carol has some comments about
We need to.
some of the timing and the like. I think we need to talk and understand that a little bit more. Things can be done in parallel, not in series. We do have a whole lot of work to do as a board.
We do.
Hopefully coming together with some decisions on what we really want for the next administrative position. But a lot of the other things like getting the survey together, getting that out, getting the announcement out, getting the advertisements out can be going while we're doing. So
But
I
they
think
have to be
do the parallel processing.
The letters have to be tweaked.
And I do not want my name in that letter.
Yes, that's inappropriate.
I didn't even see it.
That's inappropriate.
It's extremely poorly written. And I do not want my name in it. But everybody knows that I'm retiring anyway, and my contract is online and everybody knows the language that is in it. And I do not want to be referenced in any of this because I do not trust the BCIU.
Well,
So that, I mean, so I do not want, I'm just being, I'm being honest. It's honest with you.
As a superintendent
But that's,
helping.
and I can tell you other superintendents that do.
And do, right, but it's different.
The other varies that. And
That's right.
do not use her.
But that's based on how I was treated and how I have been received. That has nothing to do with how she will handle you. That is different.
Okay.
But I'm just,
From the audience.
I don't want my name in it.
We have a question from the audience, please. Andrew.
One of the things that I've heard as a community member are what you mentioned about rumors of candidates, and I'll say I've heard 3.5-ish candidates, and I've spoken to 2 of them directly because I know them as members of this community, and you know, they are interested. And I think just the fact that I've heard 3-4-ish names shows that there isn't just one front runner candidate that's the rumored selection already. And you know, I'm the only one here tonight. I'd like to say I'm a little more engaged than the average person in the community, and I'd like to think that based on the 4 names I know, even if you say 50% of them are just error, there's 2 names still that float out there that, I think that makes it clear that there isn't a front runner candidate that any one group or candidate can go with, and, it's hard to argue it free.
Andrew, I think
It's true.
what you just mentioned, yes, and what you just mentioned is the people that had expressed interest versus having a rumor that this person will be pretty much appointed to the position.
I put no stock in rumors. There's been more rumors in this valley since I've lived here. I can't even begin to tell you.
We still have to do our due diligence.
Absolutely, yeah.
Making decisions, that would mean.
And as I was walking out of the building, I heard someone say, "Oh, it's the school board talking to the new superintendent." Just some random person at the fair. It's a rumor.
Would you agree that actually we should do our due diligence and get the best person to hire, like to help the process to navigate?
I always do my research, but I think Mrs. Akin brought up a good point. They're a private company that posts lots of information online and advertisements for themselves that, there seem to be people at this table who feel like the information on the website tells them enough to go one way or another. So, if 5 of you think that there's enough information out there already, I think it's kind of clear how you should proceed forward. And, I agree with you. I probably would bring them in to present, at least hear from them face to face, not just some text online. But,
Well, I think part of the thing that we do have to do is to eliminate some of these rumors that is we have to get the process started. And we have to get it out into the public that this is the process that we're going to follow, and we are going to follow it all the way through. And then that will eliminate some of these saying that somebody already has the position, because that's not.
Why would you even let those rumors influence anything?
and I think that it's important that you just mentioned that, because this video is out on YouTube for anyone to watch, and they just listened to the last 15 minutes of you talking about the potential that there is a rumor out there already. Is just that comment alone clears that up. And
Right.
What do you think?
And the BCIU will do a nice job for you. The key is is the board going to do their homework to get the BCIU the information they need in order to do what they need to do. That's the key. And I think that's where some of the districts in the county made some poor choices, is they didn't come to consensus on what their vision was and what they were looking for before they interviewed, and then took a candidate based on face value without doing the legwork where they wanted to go and what they wanted to do. That's the key behind it. And then, with Dr. Bracken is that if you hear another presentation, you may hear some ideas of, oh yeah, we might want to try that or do that. Because any survey, and I can just tell you from a district standpoint, we don't do them much online because you cannot lock them down. They're tied to an email. So if you have 4 email addresses, you can get 4 responses, and you're going to get the people who do the survey versus not doing the survey, or they could be sent out to people who don't even live here. So you have to understand that you have to take what you can use and use what you can, and what you can't, you throw away. That's, we did that for the strategic plan, which we are updating right now. But the IU will do a nice job with you. My comments based on my experience and some of my colleagues' experiences are not necessarily positive, but it's for other reasons, not for search purposes, which is a bigger issue that will soon to be resolved shortly. But the view will be fine with whoever you go with, but you cannot fight free. The key is going to be, the difference is with a Templeton or a PSBA, they will lead you through the process. With the IU being free, you're going to have to lead yourselves through the process. And if you're willing to do the work, you're going to be in great shape. And there is a lot of people who are going to apply for this job. There are a lot of people who want to come here because of this community, because of the academic programs, because of your athletic programs, because of your financial situation. It is one of the better superintendencies that are going to be open, because you don't have a lot of the issues that a lot of the other districts, not only in the county, but in the Tri-County area, are facing right now. So you're in a really good position. You are aggressive on the timeline but it just because even in our community, it's hard enough to get parents to check grades over Christmas and return phone calls, let alone to complete a survey. But that's a board decision and something you're gonna have to work out, but you will be fine with the IU. It's just a matter of putting the work out ahead of time.
Well, and here's what I got to say. I know we're new members here, and I know you probably had experience, as you already implied, stated. But we deserve the right actually to have other candidates. We deserve the right to have exposed, to have them talk, to have them present their view. I actually resent to have this right being taken away by a vote of 5 because you had experience with it.
That's so bad.
It has nothing to do, it's the money.
Just like,
It has nothing to do with experience, that's the, I want to spend the money for that process and then bring somebody in for an hour and a half presentation, and we already have 5 people that are gonna say no. And that's what I just saw here. So it's the 15,000 to 10,000. Where we have to do the due diligence and we can't settle on the person because we're not quite sure, but we're gonna settle to put a superintendent in a position. We can't do that.
worth that $50,000, that's actually will go and save in the long run later on in hiring the right candidate and help us to navigate through the process. That's not worth it.
No, it's not worth it spending. I freely, I'm getting the same candidates. And we're not gonna fly people in from California or Utah to interview. We can't afford it. We can't do it. We can't afford it. So,
All right, so
that's.
we don't allow people to speak
We don't
on,
allow.
sorry,
You're allowed to speak.
No,
no. We decided a long time ago, you have to be in person to speak to the board.
so anyway,
Given a straw poll,
We must just do it Wednesday.
we get it, I'd like to put it on the agenda committee.
Will we, there will be changes.
Oh, yes, there will be many changes, but I think
Yes.
Mr. Curry made a wonderful point. We have to get the process together.
Okay.
Once it's done, then we can.
Suggestions that I make is if we're gonna do it on Wednesday, we're gonna vote on Wednesday. I think that by Wednesday, then we should have a plan of when we are going to start meeting together specifically just for this purpose.
Yes, we should probably be meeting at least every 2 weeks.
Yes,
As a board.
I agree.
To start putting.
because
all this-
there's a lot,
process together.
and it's gonna be a lot of work, and so we have to start planning for that now.
But. Well, let's have, again, maybe offline, you and I can talk, put together a schedule. I'd like Dr. Hackman and or Mr., I forget his name already, Rosenberry, to be involved in some of those meetings,
Yep,
just to help us
absolutely.
figure where we're going, what they need from us and
Yes.
how we can get it to them,
Right.
so.
Okay,
Okay, let's put it on the agenda for,
Are you gonna send it to me?
yeah, I'll find out, I'll figure out some verbiage.
I don't even have a contract.
Yeah, I guess, I got it, matter of fact, I got it, I think I got it right, I think I got it right here. What's one of these two?
What I sent to
so
you.
can we go to policy?
Yeah, I got, yes, I was gonna say, let's get the rest of this agenda.
I had some- It's like I had- Okay, we got one more. Our last meeting is December 12th. And that's it.
All right. Policy, I'm sure this will be a short one.
Yeah.
What a pig, okay. Like we got 5 actions, I believe, for Wednesday night. Dr. Shank, you want to say anything about those?
Number 1 was a follow-up to Mrs. Piper's request to add policy to language to policy 109. Which in talking with Attorney Pratt, that basically the language would be a statement in policy that would allow parents to require their children to have a permission slip to sign out any books or materials from any of the 3 district libraries. So that parents would know exactly what it was that their children were, or the inter-school loan library system, prior to any of their children being able to sign out any books, which would allow the parents to have complete control over any books that in which they would sign out. And the parent could sign up to have their kid's account flagged, that permission slip would be signed out, so nothing would be sent home that would be to that particular parent offensive.
So it will be per parent preference. So if the parent wants to have a control over, they will be able to request a slip, and parents that kind of, don't really care.
It'll be it'll be a sign in, sign out.
All parents care, no matter
It would be an opt-in, opt-out. So if you opt in, you have to prove every book your child checks out.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
that's what,
And that's legal?
Yes.
And that's not only books from Ollie Valley, but if a student is getting a book from Berks campus or RAC, through the library alone,
Because it
that's still covered, and that part's legal.
Mhm. He said that if you put it in the policy. Excuse me, then, yes, you can require that for permission to be signed out and ahead of time. You put it in the policy as a step that parents can opt into. It is not, the difference is that you're not making it mandatory for all students. So it's sort of like if we videotape students, but a parent has the right to opt them out of that publication. But we're not requiring it for all students. If you require it to all students, then yes, you would be out of line with the policy.
Okay, thank you.
So it's just optional for those who wish to. It just means they don't get anything until a parent signs it out. So I can't show up with the book today and expect to take it home. Permission slip comes out, permission slip that the book doesn't go home until such time the person slip comes back.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good.
And this-
Can I want to see the policy before
Okay.
I agree to that.
You want to see the language.
I want to see the.
Yeah, it's about 2 sentences.
Okay. And it's been reviewed by Ben.
Yeah, we wrote it together.
Okay.
Yeah, I just put the concept on to make sure before I write it, actually bring the language forward, but yes, we've been doing that together. And then 2 and 3 are the 800s and 900s coming back for second reading. Questions on the 800s and the 900s.
Questions on the 900s, because I think it was taken from Title IX, the definitions. And I don't believe that Title IX actually passed the new definitions for Title IX. Am I correct?
Is the online referenced in 900s at all?
Yeah, it was definitions for volunteers and some other who cannot volunteer. I don't believe those definitions, the new definitions for Title IX have passed.
Are you at 916?
That's not, that's one, say that looks like volunteers.
It was one place, but I believe it's more in more than one.
The discrimination statements, the race, color, marital status, creed, religion, ancestry, yeah, that's all legit.
No, there was also gender identity, I believe. And my question was, is that going to be opening the door for a like drag queens volunteer? That was the same question, and I don't believe those definitions have been.
The only piece that I'm looking at, any kind of definition is discrimination of the Title IX is discrimination on the basis of race, color, marital status, creed, religion, ancestry, handicap, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, national origin, school environment, in all district programs or for volunteers.
Yes, I don't believe those definitions were officially accepted legally. But they were supposed to be changed.
That's
There was I know there was some discussions about that in the higher levels.
That's under the burden statutes and it's in the consolidated statutes. So that's all law. It's under 2, 3, and 4. Legal citations are on the first page.
So it has been made law.
Yes. That's what
That's what you wrote or what you just read has been made law.
Yep. 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, 4, 5, and 6 is
Does
possible.
it apply to volunteers too?
Yep. 24 PS is the burden statutes. USSC is the consolidated statutes.
So what rights does the board have as far as allowing who is actually is involved in with children?
It goes under, well, you can't discriminate against any of those things, so you can't do that. Basically, it's someone who is of they must maintain the professional, moral, ethical relationships. So anybody that violates any of that, who has certain offenses on their clearances, are not allowed to be in schools or volunteer. Somebody who doesn't follow the code of conduct or isn't following what they need to do when they're in a school, we don't allow them to volunteer anymore. All those kind of, basic rules for volunteers, I would say, that we don't allow them in, but that's all basically under the guidelines. But you can't say, someone of, there's really not a way to say this person can and this person can't unless their behavior determines otherwise.
Yeah, I don't want to be another statistic school district when, where was that, is drag queen dressed up, shows up with G-strings and all that.
I would say that doesn't fall under proper attire for a school district. I don't think they go out in the school. I mean, if you're gonna drag it,
No, no,
it's
I'm
ridiculous.
saying
No, but that's
that-
ridiculous. If you're going to get to the ridiculous extreme,
It has happened.
has it happened here?
It has happened in the school district. But the thing is,
It's Berks County.
the policies, it doesn't, well, if it's comes from the federal level, doesn't
Okay, and
matter
they're
what
gonna
county it
happen.
is. How are we gonna protect our children from being
Because
exposed?
when
to
they
all
show
that?
up, it's not, we would say you're not wearing proper school
Exactly.
attire.
It's like, slow change.
Dr. Shank, like, will we have some as a school, will we have some reports to actually guard our children from?
Are you saying just because they're dressed differently? Or are you saying they can't come in because they're drag queens?
I'm sorry, is there a
Yes.
difference?
There's a difference.
All right.
The way that's why you told them,
Language.
isn't it because they dress and
Oh,
act
hearing
certain ways? That's why you told them?
No, when they're performing. They dress like you and I do when they're not performing.
I have been, sorry, I don't follow the drag queens.
Next question, please. Move on.
That was the same.
We need to move on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You can always vote no.
And this is the second reading, correct?
Yes. Second reading and approvals next week.
Okay.
Anything in the 800s? Okay. Before we get to the 700s, we are proposing the 23-24 facility fee schedule. We have not updated since probably 2015, if I remember right. So we have a proposal on top and then the old stuff underneath so you can reference it. I thought it was easier to hand it out than it was to try to look at it on the iPad. We don't get donations. As you are aware that we have spent a lot of money on upgrades and sound systems and lights and gym floors and all the other stuff. And we do have extensive use by our class 1 organizations, our youth leagues and our local pieces. So basically it's really kind of an application fee, which will all go back into kind of that pot of money to maintain the facilities. We did take out the fitness centers or the wellness centers only because that we have not been renting them out to begin with, just because of the safety and the liability with the amount of equipment that is in there. And you have to be trained appropriately to use that. Raising the recommendation is to raise class 2. We've always tried the class 3s and keeping that high because they are groups not associated with the Valley. The school district, and we don't really want people who don't have, some kind of investment into the district using, especially the turf field and the auditoriums. We are having with class 2s, actually having a little more issues with supervision and some damages and things like that. So we're also updating the administrative regs that go along with policy 707 as far as probation and lack of use and some things for damages. But we don't want to price out our local groups. The auditoriums, because middle school and high school both have new sound systems, new light systems. We've done a lot of work with the curtains, the stages, all the fly systems, all of that kind of stuff. We are recommending that you do raise the price for that. So if somebody's doing a season, that's different than an event. Because we don't want to do like every time the youth basketball uses a gym, that shouldn't be $25 a day, but just $25 kind of an application fee And then Tim will write out the actually, how does that use, how does that work? And the price of air conditioning and electric and some of the other places, concession stands outside because of the ice, the electric, it just kind of helps to start to offset some of these expenses. And then under the opening and closing of the buildings, we are actually losing a lot of money. And I know when we put this in originally back in, probably 14, 15, something like that. The thing was to make sure that when we're paying overtime on our buildings and ground staff who come in to open and close the buildings, that we were kind of making a net because of what we do pay. So we are looking at raising those. So building opening and closing is on building our class ones or on the days that we're not open. So the custodians are already here, there's no charge. It's the Saturdays and Sundays when they have to come back to open for basketball or wrestling or whatever other activity is going on. It's $40 to open and close the building because we do have to secure the building and double check everything, make sure lights are off, all the rest. And then class 2 is another $10 because there could be 50-50 Valley residents and then or outside groups. Class 3s we would not have in the building without an employee present because they would not have any investment in using to the district. Custodial hourly is $50 an hour because that does pay time and overtime and does cover your expenses. And the same thing with class 2s and 3s. And then the kitchen food service, as you know, you must have a safe serve person in the kitchen at all times. That is a regulation on how all the cafeteria stuff works. That changed a few years ago. And some of our cafeteria people in overtime, that's about what they make. With the overtime and the overhead on that. So that's why that's at 50. And then the auditorium is the same way with the teacher's contract, as well as some of our buildings and grounds people who do that. So that's why we kind of left those at 50, because that's what your cost would be. So you're basically recouping your cost with a little bit of overhead for the back end of the business office for processing all the paperwork.
In class 1, class 2, class 3, that's the amount of people that.
Differentiate that piece.
Class 1 in the policy, class 1 is like 90% of them have to be district residents.
Oh,
Class 2 is almost like 60-40 split. Class your residents versus non-residents, and then class 3 is majority is non-residents. So we always have the class 1 rates are always lower, only because that's your youth leagues and your youth footballs, and that's your own residents. So you don't want to outprice them. You want them to use the buildings, but you also you still need to kind of pay for your expenses a little bit. And this is, we've done so much upgrades on the buildings and the electric stuff that just a little bit of application. And then I'm working with Mr. Owens. He didn't think we wouldn't price anybody out as far as that, but it does, kind of add up over time.
Question, what are they now, those fees?
So on the second page,
A lot of times we don't define how much.
Do we
they
have
make.
the staff for custodial and food service to,
we find people, they do cover it all.
okay.
Yep,
And help my memory, the pot pie dinner fits in
we waive theirs.
with that, okay, that we do have a separate policy or
Yeah.
separate.
Remember we did
We're
that
acting
last
on
year.
that.
Yeah,
she-
We did that last.
Yeah, I do that. That's every August.
Yeah,
And then-
Dr. Sharp?
I think it's gonna be March 19th.
Yeah, that's always done in August.
PTO, aren't they usually fundraisers, anything that fundraisers stuff for school? Do we have a policy, their fees away?
No, we don't. Because they're usually here when there are custodians here. And they can't use the kitchens unless there is somebody who is safe served in the kitchen itself. And that they would have to pay for.
But most of the PTO is gonna be resident.
Yeah.
You would think.
Right, but also aren't they doing the fundraising for school?
They use for the school or for the teachers or different events, yeah. But their events are all here when we have custodians here. They're very rarely here when.
So what would their fees would look like, just kind of an average?
Their fees really they don't have many fees.
Okay.
Because they
Yeah,
don't
just
really,
I want to make sure because they're doing such a good, they're helping the school district. I don't want them to face any fees to,
because they really don't do facility use forms. They only coordinate with the building.
okay.
These are your outside groups who are filling out paperwork, or you're not associated with the school filling out paperwork to use the turf field or the track, or somebody's running a fundraiser on a baseball field or youth football or one of those groups. And then you always have the right to waive it. Just as we would not charge, the fair people for the use of the parking lot, like, that would be one that would be waived, and that would be in the reg. Just because they give us so much more, and the same thing with the foundation, that would be
Okay.
in the regulation.
That's kind of where I was going with that.
Yeah, that's standard protocol.
Okay, thank you.
It's the personnel costs, we don't waive those, except for the Popeye people, and that's done by separate resolution.
So what fees do you want us to raise and when are we?
These are the ones that we're proposing. You can sit on it, it's for July 1. So you can look at them, I can bring them back next month. You can look at them again. You can talk to whoever you want to talk to, see what they think. We'd like to have them done sooner than later, if that's pending approval of the 700 section. So that when Patty and Tim start signing people up for facility use, which happens in the spring, we send the right fee schedule and the right policy and the right regs out, so people know what the rules are starting July 1. So you don't have them thinking one thing and then getting a bill for something else. That's not, they need to communicate appropriately.
So 700 is for second reading and that will be next week.
That's this week,
Oh, this week.
and then approval is next week.
So the approval will be next week, but we're gonna wait for the
If you want to wait another,
fee.
if you want to look at it and then bring it back in next month's committee meeting, that's fine.
Those are the fees you're suggesting we go with.
Yes,
Okay.
And then
What we currently have is what you want to put through.
what I gave you tonight, yeah,
That's what you want.
That's
Okay,
right.
that's what.
that's what we're proposing.
And you're what,
There's no-
15% higher than what they were?
Yeah, we went up basically 10, they haven't gone up in like 5 years.
So you only went up 10%?
Yeah, like $10.
And we're extremely low. School district.
And I'm going.
Districts were.
Yeah, because what will happen though, is that you don't want a youth league fee for signing up for baseball to be so high that it prices a parent out who has 3 kids.
No, but I'm looking at this
You know.
going, yeah, that's covered.
So if you have baseball, softball and whatever in the spring, then youth league is only paying us $75, but at the same time, that $75 helps go in to pay for the blood control that we got to do with the fields.
Yeah, no.
You know, I mean, it's not a lot, but
So it would be July 1st.
July is a 23-24, be July 1st. We just want to make sure we have them ready to go to communicate. Because people will start signing up to use their facilities starting in the spring.
It'll be
after-
effective July 1st,
Yeah,
if we decide.
That we can.
and then you can look at them every year.
700.
It should get into the tickler file that every time, every November, you should be looking at them and say, okay, we good, not good, do want to raise them, not raise them, were they too high, too low? Just because you spend a lot of money on all the facilities. We think also, there's also an accountability if you paid a little bit to use it versus having it for free. There's also a little bit on supervision, making sure that everybody's cleaning up.
You have a whole nother list of,
Yeah,
if you're renting this if you're renting the gymnasium for a day, this is what you're required.
yeah, that's on the regs, yeah.
Right.
That's the, yeah, this is the piece that has to be board approved, because we can't invoice without you approving this piece. So I can bring this back in December, take the time, think about it. I just don't want to say, okay, in June, you signed up in March for use of a gym, and then thinking you're paying this, and then we send you a bill and you're paying something else.
We got to think about it.
Yeah, I don't have to look at it.
I don't know.
Can we move on? We just move on it.
Yeah, move on.
All right. Questions on 700?
Let's not kick it down the road, right? Am I
Everyone
done?
else?
You're done.
Am I done? Great, thank you. My head is spinning tonight.
Yeah. Thank you for this book. I really do appreciate it. Really, I mean, it's a part of my day. Listen to eat Wendy's lunch today, Biggie Bag. This, look up there. I mean, really. Yeah, thanks, man. Dr. Shank?
We're not doing number 1, he's not here. Number 2 and number 3 are the course catalogs for the high school and the middle school. They are online. High school does not have any new courses coming out, although we are right now working on 2 business courses to put in.
Yes.
Working with a new, one of our current teachers, getting her business certified. Who will be working with RAC actually, so that we are aligning to RAC for dual enrollment once she finishes her master's. So they will align there as we continue to start to rebuild business out.
And where are they? Where are the new courses?
They're not on yet.
Okay.
We're waiting on that for her to certification piece, but she's doing the curriculum development right now. So they'll be coming out. You'll see them more in January. It's more of an intro to business, and the other piece that we're looking at is more of it's a modified entrepreneurship, which ties into the Bloomsburg competition that we did really well with the Shark Tank thing that Mr. Hoffman used to take the students to. And then we're looking at a graphic design marketing semester-based courses, which will align really well. She's already on staff, doesn't cost you anything other than maybe some books and materials, but she's going to end up getting dual certified, and then we'll start to build that program back in again. Articulation to learning out and RAC, so that the students will get dual credits for that, and start to rebuild that business program, because it is a piece that we are sorely missing. Other than that, everything is what it is, and the middle school catalog does include this year's new course, which is the 8th grade wellness course, features planning and wellness. And other than that, they're set, and he just made a few adjustments there. Parents really like that course catalog. And number 4 is your review of your low economic percentages for 22-23. So I have those for you that were handed out. You will see the trends are going from when we took it back to 05, 06, when you were basically, in around, I'm just looking at elementary at 9%, and this year's numbers are coming in right now. We're certified on October 15th, because that's the date you have to use, at 34%. So of the 618 students at the elementary school, you had 212 eligible students. Middle school's enrollment is 362, 114 eligible students for 31%. And the high school has 518 students, and 129 of them are eligible, of 25%. And then basically your district percentage right now is about 34, which is one of the highest that we've had in a while. And even during the 2 COVID years, you'll start eating with free lunches. We didn't get the forms in as much. But you'll see the numbers are starting to still go up, and we are going after those. Some of those are direct search through the state for other services, and some of them are just for meal purposes as well.
Well, these are all graphic report.
Yeah.
This is who is eligible for
Yeah.
free and reduced. lunch.
Free and list, yeah. And then those numbers drive your Title I numbers and your some of your other grant funding federal numbers. IDA, Title I, Title II, Title IV. Are based on those percentages. So the higher those percentages go, it also has an effect on your aid ratio, which is your level of poverty or wealth in the district, which then drives your adjusted aid ratio.
So it's never been that high.
No,
How's the rest of the county and the state?
The state depends on where you live in the pockets, and the county is all over the place depending on where you are in the county. Ours is really coming in because we have a lot of homeless, a lot of foster, which are automatically free and reduced, and also a migrant, which is new, because I think we've had 1 migrant student in the last 11 years, 12 years, until this year we have 4. And then, so they're all automatically free. And some of the other issues that we have with through children and youth that we work with, families and things that are automatic class through the state. And if you're a medical assistant, you're already free and reduced. So some of it's driven off of special ed. But it is different. It is going up. So just another kind of demographic piece for you. Also tonight I have your elementary class sizes. I did not get the enrollment projections done. I'll have them for you next month. So you will see that for kindergarten, currently in 2022, we're seated at 104. Estimated next year is 101. There are 5 teachers, which puts your class sizes for kindergarten at 21. First grade currently has 90. Next year, they're anticipating 104, which puts the class sizes at about 21. This year, second grade's at 107, and then probably about 90 I think that number's gonna be a little higher, but which puts about 18 into second grade. And then third grade's 104, projected to be 107. And then fourth grade is 113, projected to be 104. And then fifth grade is currently at 93 and projected next year at 113. And then our pre-K right now is at 13, and we're still trying to get to the 15 number, which is the max we can have on the grant. And then it breaks it down by gender, just because that's one of the state reports we have to do. So you can see that their totals also from 2017, when they were at 682 and then 685, and then 2022, these are 624. So those numbers have been kind of gone all over the place over the last couple of years for the elementary. And then I'll get your projections and your historical numbers for you for this one. And then the next one is your, this is the big one, which is your course enrollments by department, which shows you the changes in the high school enrollments from 2011 to present. That's the big long one. And at the top, you will also see the number of students at the high school, which is 504, and the number of BCTC students this year is 103. So you'll see last year they had 81 at BCTC, and we have 103. That's why we get so frustrated when people say we keep sending less, because we are sending more. And if you remember last year's class, we only graduated like 102. So the fact that we sent 81 of them to BCTC, that's not bad. Like, so our percentages are going up even though the enrollment is coming down.
Is there any reasoning or strategy why the increase?
Why? Because of BCTC?
Yeah.
Because we've been pushing the trades and articulating the relationship to STEM and the relationship to ag. So if you're going into ag, then you're trying to pick up automotive or diesel or heavy machinery. If you're going into engineering, depending which side of the engineering house you're going into, you could either be at West on the computer science, which then ties to ours, or if you're going in to pick up the mechatronics, which then sends you into the collegiate world free of charge, so to speak, with their articulations, or trying to tie what we're doing here into getting double dipping. And the other piece that I have been pushing hard with parents over the last 2 years is the fact that our underclassmen, once you get to junior and senior year, get your, what we call our gen eds, using the collegiate model, out of the way, you can go to BCTC, regular ed or special ed, bank your diploma, and stay at BCTC and finish your certification because you're more mature, you can do it faster. You can do a 3-year and a 2-year and stay over there, not come here anymore, still walk with your class, be a senior, do all that other stuff, get your high school diploma for us, bank it, and then finish at BCTC in 2 years. So you got your senior experience, you get your high school experience as a full-time here, go there, get those certifications. You got the best of both worlds, and you're going to walk out and make $80,000 a year. So use BCTC as your college. So we're going to push in that avenue because a lot of parents don't realize that regular ed and special ed can stay till they're 21. And they don't have to ever set foot back into here once they graduate. They just don't get their diploma. We hold it until they finish over there. But with the way BCTC is structured, they really can finish level 1 and 2 together faster than they could when they're half day. And then we're also working, I have a group going to Penn Tech, I forget what it is, but anyway, to get into their apprenticeship program, because if you do their apprenticeship program in the spring, it's like going to BCTC for 2 years. So we will have a group going up there and doing their online courses and then going up to do their shop pieces, that they will actually be able to do what at juniors and seniors, basically 3 years of BCTC in about 9 months. So the ones that don't want to leave here will have another opportunity if they don't want to go into the culture at BCTC to get the skills and the competencies through a different avenue without having to leave. So there's different pathways, but trying to get the word out to parents to understand you can just, your college is sitting right across the street. It's 1.5 miles away.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
I appreciate that.
So
Thank you.
it's trying to push it that way. And people are starting to get the fact that just because you graduate doesn't mean you give up BCTC. You just got to be willing not to take your diploma and graduate. So,
Thank you.
okay, so that'll give you, I'm not going to go through it, but it'll tell you what's moved up and down. We can tell where the kids have voted with their feet, is what they like and what they don't like. The other sheet that I presented tonight, which we put out every year, is the course list for under 10s. And on that list, you will see a lot of our courses that have less than 10 students. Should,
No,
online.
it's online.
Yeah, I saw that. It's,
Is usually special ed and a lot of your AP courses. So as you look at like, the question always come up, what can we cut? When you look at it, there really is not anything left. There's nothing left because your AP courses aren't going to have 15 kids on them. So that I was actually really pleased with the schedule and how that fell. That's it. The only one that really is hurting in courses is ag. They're running a lot of classes with 4, 5s, and 6s.
Yeah.
So that's the only area that you would look at. And the last pieces are 2 more curriculums coming, and I have 2 more I did not add to the agenda, which you'll see for Wednesday for 30-day public review. I have an engineering design development, and then the 8th grade, which is our new course, futures planning and wellness, which is an 8th grade that kind of takes in a wellness, but it also gets into a little bit of business and planning and career and a little bit of everything. It's kind of based off an old course that was here years ago, which when it was careers in financial planning and personal, like financial literacy, kind of redesigned for the 8th grade, which kind of opens it up, like, my first job and things like that and budgeting. So we put it, Scott did a really nice job organizing that, and we now teach it in 8th grade.
Anything else there?
next meeting is December 12th. Thank you.
Maria.
Shay?
So, number 1 is the agreement with Summit Valley Outdoor Solutions, for some snow removal as needed, just gives you the rates. That's only are used if our equipment breaks and we get a blizzard and we can't move it. I don't think we have used them in the last 4 or 5 years.
Cause I saw it was like $1,200 or something, but that was only for them to move the stuff in.
No, that's the rates. That's per hour. So if
I
like,
didn't quite get that.
Yeah, if
Cause
we-
the top part was blank and I'm like,
yeah, no, all that is
Okay.
that if we need to rent their plow truck, it's the flat rate's
it's
$200.
just flat rate
Yeah,
for one snow.
yeah.
Okay.
So if ours breaks and we can't move the dump truck and we need the dump truck to haul snow off the grounds, then we rent theirs, they come in and they do it. If our front loader breaks, then we need one, he'll come in and do it for
So
us,
that's just the rate if we need.
if we need. it.
Okay, I was,
Yeah,
that's all.
we will,
That was actually my
I
question.
didn't quite understand that.
it's the backup if you never know when something's gonna
Yeah.
break.
Right.
And then like our stuff is usually cleared before the roads are, like our guys are phenomenal when it comes to it. But if before we had the dump truck and the new tractor and some of the other hauling it all, it's been tough. But if we break something, we need to have a backup to call to help us get it off grounds. And then we help the fairgrounds to clear his lot and some things too. So we just try to, be good neighbors. And then the second one is just to ratify a private transportation contract. And what I do with these is basically sometimes it's cheaper to pay a parent to transport their child to a placement or out of district than it is to pay a driver in a van to take them. So then we reimburse them at the IRS rate, and then there's forms and everything, and then we are able to claim them on our E-Tran report, which is our transportation report. So we get the money back, and it just sets the rate, the requirements, how many miles they have to give us, their VIN number and their insurance and all this kind of stuff. And then you have to approve it so that we have the right to pay them for it. But it does save you a lot of money. So it's basically the legal document that says that. So that's what that is. Keep going. Number 1 is we actually have $1,000 donation for HOSA, which is Health Occupation Student Association Club, only to find out we never created the club. Students account, so we need to ratify the student activities account so we can put the donation in it. And then those young people are going to start fundraising for all of their competitions that are coming up. That way the auditors will be happy with us. Number 2 is curricular and extracurricular positions. Reese Horn for middle school assistant baseball. Amanda Rizzuti's coming back. I was very excited about that. Girls basketball, so graduate, outstanding player, 3-point shot. Joe Fick, middle school head wrestling, Mike Mackey, middle school assistant wrestling, and Ashlyn Zeckman for a fitness center monitor. Number 3 is ratifying Katie Lynch and the 9 students who went to district chorus auditions at Parkland We had 4 students get into district chorus, so we're excited about that. 4 and 5 kind of go together. Number 4 is Mr. Buckner and Miss Marino taking 50 students to TSA regionals in Stroudsburg to compete in February. And then the teams that come out of regionals that qualify for states is number 5. We are looking to possibly have 25 eligible to compete at the state level for Seven Springs. And then we actually have middle school students who will be competing at TSA regionals as well. That will be coming through. They're doing a really nice job with middle school. So the state conference is the second one, the regional one is the first one.
Hosha Health, the Student Association, who's gonna be leading that club?
That's Mr. Mole.
Oh, fantastic. But he's going, is he leaving for a family?
No. He's on intermittent. He's in and out.
Okay, so, we're good,
He'll be here.
good. Thank you.
Sure.
It's meeting December 12th.
All we have is that anybody's interested, I guess Dr. Shank sent out several emails last week if you wanted to please sign up for that KKL. Law practice. I know I have a conflict up there already, so I could not.
Anybody else?
I'm sure it's gonna be really good.
Yeah.
I just,
I'm going.
I couldn't swing it.
See you there.
I'm close. My home base is close to work there.
Go get some breakfast, man. Chow down.
I'm going for breakfast.
On their time.
Please, take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Eat some for me. I really wish I could go, but I to be that.
I probably won't.
We're just gonna start with breakfast and then we there.
Yeah.
That's very good.
Anybody else got something we'll discuss tonight? Otherwise, we'll hold our peace until Wednesday. Okay, thanks, folks.
You bring in paper copy of this catalog.
Yeah.
Thank you.